There's no reason why that couldn't be your story.
You don't have an expiration date.
Ooh, I love that.
The actual pages. Like, that's all that matters at the end of the day.
This is the Authors and Agents podcast. Megan, I'm so excited to have you here today. We are both in Oregon, which is fun.
Yeah.
We're just, 60 miles apart, but it's great.
Short little jump.
Yeah, short little jump. So I'm so excited for you for having your debut novel, That's Not My Name, come out into the world. So could you tell me a little bit more about it?
Sure. It is a dual point of view young adult thriller, also set in Oregon, so it's like my home area. It
Yes.
is about a girl who wakes up in a ditch by the side of the road with no memory of who she is or how she got there. And she is brought to the police station where her dad picks her up, and he tells her name is Mary and about their life together. And he brings her home to his cabin in the woods, where great things always happen. Cabins in the woods, and tries to jog her memory, about their life together. But as those memories start to flicker back, they don't really match up with the life that he's spun for her. Meanwhile, 60 miles away, Drew is the prime suspect in the disappearance of his girlfriend Lola, who's been missing for about 5 weeks. And when the police tell him that they are no longer looking for a person, they're looking for a body, he decides he's going to investigate himself, and he takes off to do that. And so they kind of converge in an interesting way.
I love it. I love dual point of view.
Yes.
I love that it's in Oregon. Every book I've ever written has also been set in Oregon,
Yeah.
usually in the Oregon coast, because there's not enough. There needs to be more Oregon books.
And with thrillers, like there's just a creepy vibe over here with all the rain and the gloom, and so it's just very fitting.
Very fitting. Well, how exciting. So tell me about your journey up to this point to having your debut novel come out into the world.
Ugh, that is a long journey. I started writing novels in like 2009. I read Twilight for the first time, and I was like, young adult is a thing? Like, I didn't know before then. And so I started reading everything that was YA that was out there. And after a while, I started kind of picking apart, like, I wish it ended like this, or I wish the character was more like this. And somebody, I don't remember who it was, someone kind of spitefully said, well, then why don't you write a book? And me being who I am, I was like, challenge accepted. All right, I will. And so I did. And then I wrote another one. And then I was about halfway through a third book when I got this idea for a horror novel that was also YA. And my critique partners at the time were like, you have to drop everything and write this right now. And I was like, all right. So I did. And then it ended up being the first thing that I ever queried in 2014, I believe. And I participated in one of those Pit Mad pitch contests that are now long dead. But I got a request from my now agent, which turned into a, hey, can you revise this? And then maybe we'll work together situation. And so I did.
Right.
And then she signed me on the 4th of July, actually, which was really fun. The fireworks were like very fitting for my celebratory mood.
I love it.
In 2014. And then we took that book out on sub. And as many do, it failed. It did not sell. And after that, I was kind of sad, as one is when a project doesn't go the way that you want it to. But then also my personal life kind of exploded at the same time. So I quit writing for a long time. I think probably about 5 years. I would tinker with a thing, but I never got past like chapter 2. And so then I started to convince myself that maybe writing the books isn't my thing. Maybe that's not my path. Maybe it's like teaching people how to write their books. So I started freelance editing, and I started a book coaching company, and I was doing that for the full 5 years. And I had almost fully convinced myself that I was those who don't do teach kind of people.
Right.
Until this idea popped into my head about a girl in a ditch who can't remember who she is, and it would not leave me alone. And I quit on it like 3 or 4 more times. I probably only spent 4 months in total writing the book, but it took me 18 months to get to the end of it because I just kept bailing on it. But it wouldn't stop. It just kept coming back. And eventually that ended up being my debut novel. That's Not My Name.
And so you have the same agent that you did back in
Yes,
2014, is
we've
that
been
right?
working together for
Wow.
almost 10 years now, and she is such a trooper because I don't know how many emails I sent to her saying, "It's fine, you can drop me. I'm not doing anything." And she was like, "No, you know what? It doesn't cost me anything to keep you on my list. So when you write a book, I'll sell
Right.
it." And that's what she did.
Oh man, that you picked the right agent back
I
in
know.
2014. That's amazing.
Ugh.
You know, I think there's some important points in your story because I think this whole process, traditional publishing and self-publishing too, they all have their own
Mhm.
issues,
Yes.
issues, hard things, right? And I have been at that point. So, I ran this podcast from 2017 to 2021 and I quit writing. And I was like, I'm done writing. I'm done with the podcast. I'm just done. I couldn't handle it anymore. I had gotten really, really close a couple times and been very, very rejected a couple of times
Mhm.
that it was just so hard. And so I think that's something we forget in like at large in this industry that it's okay to quit at times, like,
Mhm.
right? Give yourself a break because it was so nice to come back from quitting because I also had an idea in my head that like just wouldn't leave me alone. Fine, I'll give in. But it's okay to take a break. It's okay to give yourself space because it is so hard and it can be so hard on your mind and your mental health.
Yes.
All of what we're trying to achieve here, right?
And trying to force those words out when life
Yeah.
is crazy and it's just not happening, that will take more out of you than just waiting. The words will come when you are in a good place to write the words. And I just wasn't for a really long time. And I beat myself up about it a lot. And I was like, this is
Yeah.
the only thing that feels like me. When I'm writing, I feel like I'm my whole self and I can't get back to it. And I needed time. I needed to get there and have my life be stable and have myself be stable. And then I wrote a whole book and it was fine. So if someone's
Yeah.
struggling, maybe you just need a little bit of time too.
Yeah, and I think that, sometimes we see all the stories about the people who persevered, they never gave up, they wrote through everything, and it's like, great, if that worked for them, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That does not have to work for you.
Mhm.
Don't make yourself feel bad about that.
Absolutely.
So, looking back on your journey, you queried with your agent almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But looking back now and through your experiences and having author friends and working with people, what would your like top query tip be for someone who is querying right now?
I would say, and some of my querying advice is so old now that it's probably not even relevant. But the thing that seems to be the evergreen advice that I always give people is have people that have not read your book read your query and then
Mm.
tell you what the book is about. Because
Oh
more
yeah.
often than not, people will write queries that are all vibes and you don't really get to the point where there's like the stakes are just non-existent. And
Yeah.
if you can write a query and give it to someone who has not read it, who has heard nothing about your book, and then they say, "Oh, here's what your book is about," and they're right, or they're at least very close, then chances are when you query it, the agent will also have a very accurate sense of what it's about. They'll know what the stakes are, they'll know who the story is about, and that's great. If you send it to people who don't know and they're like, I couldn't really tell you what this is about, then your query is probably not doing its job.
Oh, I think that's such good advice because it has I've always been that type of writer where queries have been so hard because you're like, I know everything that happens. How am I supposed to
Hmm.
boil down, right? What's important? Something that I've started to do now is I write the query letter first, or at least try, like I'm like, okay, based on this idea in my head, I'm gonna write what the query letter should be. And it changes as you go through the process. But that's really helped me define what the stakes are, and then I've done that where I've sent it to people who don't know anything about the book, and
Hmm.
it's been very, very helpful because yeah, people who read it are like, okay, yeah, I could see where you're getting these vibes, which I
Hmm.
love that their query is all vibes. But they know what the book's about, so that is a great test. I think that's good tips.
And they'll just kind of mentally fill in anything that's not there, whereas someone who hasn't read the story can't
Yes.
do that. They'll just have question marks. And it's nice to know where the
Yeah,
question marks are so you can maybe fix those.
definitely. So, thinking about That's Not My Name, what is something you hope readers take away from this story?
Um, it's such a creepy, such a creepy bad place to be when, ugh.
You wake up in a ditch,
Yes.
not knowing your name.
I would say probably that you need to have hope even in the worst of times. When life is awful and horrible things are happening to you, or you're in a really bad spot, sometimes the hope that things are going to get better, and that like hope that drives the fight to keep going and find a solution, is the only way out. And it's definitely true for Drew and for Mary. If either one of them had lost hope at any point, the story would not exist. uh, the hope is what kept them going, and I hope that journey through how do I maintain this hope when everything looks horrible resonates with my readers, because it was really fun to write that.
Oh, good. I think we need more hope in the world.
Yes.
So even if we can get it through a YA thriller, horror, creepy book, that's
Which
good.
maybe isn't the place you'd expect the hope to be, but it's
Exactly.
there.
We find hope in very unlikely places.
Exactly.
So, Megan, tell me who some of your favorite authors are and why you love to read them.
Oh, the OG, the top of the tier is probably always going to be Courtney Summers. I read Sadie about a month after I finished
So
the
amazing.
first draft of this book, and it broke my brain in a way that made me want to break other people's brains. And I don't think I did it quite as well as her, but uh, I loved Sadie. I think This Is Not a Test is one of my favorite books of all time. It's
One of my favorite books of all time. I was just going to bring that one up.
it's so
One of my
good.
favorites
I
ever.
love that it's a
Yeah.
zombie book without being about zombies.
Yes.
Like it's not, I
Yes.
love it so much. And yeah, I would read anything that she writes about ever.
Oh,
I
me too.
also
I'm with you there.
I also love Natalie Richards, and
Mm.
Mindy McGinnis is just I love her books so much. And then Allison Saft. I love her books, and I would read anything by my sweet friend, Courtney Gould. I would read anything from her.
Oh, I love it. Those are so good. I've been on a romance kick lately, but hearing all those authors, I'm like, okay, where are my YA thrillers?
Oh, they're so fun, and they're
I
so
love it.
well done. It's just,
Yes.
it leaves you with that the book is done and I'm sad now kind of vibe.
Yes. Yes. So tell me about so 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 we've heard a little bit about your journey with writing. You quit, you gave up.
Yeah.
I think remind me, did you love writing all your life? Or
No.
was it just okay, so tell me a little bit about how the love of writing began for you.
So I mean, it was still early-ish in my life. I didn't start it like a few years ago, obviously, because I've been doing this for a while. But I was not one of those people that was like 5 years old writing novels in my notebook. I started um, in my 20s, in my early 20s. And so I wasn't a reader really, even in high school. I think I read like one Nicholas Sparks book a year.
There you
I
go.
I didn't know any better. Um, but I wasn't a big reader. I never took a creative writing class in high school. I just took the English classes I needed to take. And it wasn't until after I had graduated that I started writing. Although I did one time way back in the day, I wrote in a notebook in middle school, I want to say, some Stargate SG-1 fan fiction in my notebook. And I
Perfect.
wrote, it was like
Love
8
it.
pages, and I was so excited about it. And I showed my friend, and she made fun of me. And so then I never did it again.
Of course.
So that was interesting. But I did, I guess, have an early spark. It kind of got snuffed out at a time when, I mean, middle school is hard enough. You don't need people making fun of you for trying to be creative. So I bounced back to it
No.
eventually, but it wasn't until I was around 20, 22, somewhere in there.
Fan fiction is a great place to start. I think we all have written fan fiction at some point. I tried to create this like duo of Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets supernatural fan fiction when I was, younger, and it was fun. It was fun. It's always fun to work with worlds that are already created around you.
Yeah, and to stretch out pieces of stories you kind of wish were there. That's so
Yes.
fun.
Yes. So fun. So if you were to genre hop, I know you've got other things in the works, other things I'm sure,
Hmm.
but if you were to genre hop, write something different from, That's Not My Name, what would you want to write?
I would either stick with YA but move into the horror side, which is kind of where I started.
Hmm.
In fact, I've been working on something. It's an old project that I'm trying to resurrect for a while, and every time I go back to it, I'm like, oh, I just still love this so much. So I would love to lean into that and just stay in the creepy area, but,
Yeah.
offshoot a little bit. Or completely opposite, I also read a lot of rom-coms, and so I would love to do
Yes.
like adult romance one day, even though that's super, super intimidating. But I've had a two kind of a book and a companion novel idea for a rom-com duology for like 3 years. It just kind of bounces around in the back of my head, and so one day maybe.
Yes, one day, definitely. You don't need to pigeonhole yourself. You can definitely do that. And I have recently become a serious lover of rom-coms. I'd never really read them before,
Mhm.
and I love those where it's like a whole world and you get a different book for each character. Those are my fave.
I love them so
Those are so
much.
fun.
And it's nice to balance
Yeah.
out the creepy stuff, I could go from
Yes.
one really horrific true crime based monstrosity to something that's like light and happy and flirty on a beach somewhere or something.
Yeah, exactly. We need the balance of
Yeah.
both
The
things.
palate cleanser.
And you could even combine it. You could do a romantic horror book.
Yeah.
There you go.
There actually may be something in the works for that already. That just reminded me of another thing.
Well, I'm excited. We're excited to see it, Megan. I can't wait. So, as you know, talk to me a little bit about your business because you still do like book editing, mentoring, that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, I was a Pitch Wars mentor way back in the day, right after I had signed with my agent. I did that for like two
Mm-hmm.
years, and after the program for that year would be over, I was like, oh, I miss working with writers, and I just kept waiting a whole
Yeah.
year to do it again, and so I ended up kind of rolling that into working with people on like a freelance editor basis. But after a while, I kind of got burnt out doing the whole manuscript at once thing, and I wanted it to be more
Yeah.
collaborative, like the parts that I enjoyed about being a mentor. And so I ended up book coaching instead, which feels very similar. I get to be more in it, and so I work with like 7 to 10 people at a time, which is really fun because my brain is so full of books at all times. I don't know how I
I
keep my own
bet.
story straight, but it's really fun, and it allows me to work in my day job in the writing world, and then also so it kind of I'm in the same basket day to day, so that's kind of fun. And it's really neat to see people get so excited about their books evolving, and celebrate with them when they have a win. So it's really
Yes, and
fun.
I'm sure it's fun to to be a part of it evolving and
Yes.
help, see things where they might not be able to see it. You're their partner in crime as they're
Yeah.
creating these worlds.
Whereas, like, when I was doing full manuscripts, you kind of just give all of the notes and then say goodbye, good luck. Whereas this way,
Right.
it's like, here's a note. I don't know how to fix that. Okay, let's jump on the phone and we'll talk it out. And so I get to be a part of the solution as well if they don't know how to fix a problem, which is really
Yeah.
cool.
Oh, I love that. And so where can they find that information about you? Like a website or
Yeah,
what?
it's also all in my link tree. If you go to my Instagram, it's in there, as well as all my book coaching stuff is on the website, and it's Manu Coaching, MANU coaching.com.
Perfect. Well, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
I love that. And I did that with Rebecca Fabian. She does some book coaching, and I just know that was so helpful, even in like the very baby stages
Yeah.
of a story. So I love that you're able to offer people that. That's so fun.
Yeah. It's really cool.
Yeah. So on that note, coaching, giving advice, giving notes, what's some bad writing or publishing advice that you've either had given to you or just that you've heard in the industry?
Um, Definitely that you have to write every single day or you're not a real writer.
Mm,
I've heard that in many different forms, especially during my 5 year pause. There were a lot of people saying, things like if you don't find a way to get the words out, like maybe you don't have the work ethic for publishing, or
Mm,
it's going to get a lot harder when you sell a book. And what if you can't write the words then? And there wasn't a lot of compassion in those moments for going through a tough situation, or maybe why the words weren't coming. I do think that having a writing routine is super, super important, but a writing routine doesn't have to equal every day. It just means that you
yeah.
consistently put words down and make time for it, the way that you do for anything else that's important in your life. And whatever that looks like, whether it's a chapter a day or a chapter a week, or you sit down every Saturday and get something down on the page, as long as you make time for it in whatever schedule works for you, you're a real writer.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I agree. I think anytime we add like all these qualifiers to
mhm.
what a writer looks like or what you need to do to be a writer, it's just gonna suck for somebody.
Mhm.
It's gonna be the thing that makes somebody be like, okay, well, I give up then in that case because I don't have one or two or all of these. And I think that's not what we want to do because, like, you're right, as long as you're making time for it, you're passionate about it, you being a writer and you're writing experience can look so different from someone else who is also a writer.
And everyone's lives are different. Everyone's time to write is different. Everyone's personal life is different. So trying to put the same blanket, this is what you have to do every day to write your book onto everyone, it's never going to work. You have to find what works for you. And as long as you're making the time in whatever way that means, if you make time for the thing, however you can,
Yes.
you're doing great.
Yes.
Just keep doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, it can change because, like, I remember the days where I used to go to Starbucks and I would sit there for
Hmm.
2.5 hours and I would write, and I didn't have a care in the world. And now I write in the Notes app on my phone while I nurse my 1-year-old to sleep, and that's my writing time.
Yes. Yep. And
Life changes and it's okay.
someone's going to get sick and you're not going to write for like 2 weeks, and that's just how it's going to go.
Yeah.
And you're not a failure because life took over and you didn't have the mental space left to
Yeah.
imagine the next thing that happens in this thing you're making up,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've always been that kind of person who, if I'm too overly emotional in whatever way, sad, angry, or whatever, I can't sit down and write. I have to take a break until my emotions have just like evened out a little bit. I can still be a little bit sad, but I can't be like too emotional.
Hmm.
It's hard for me
Yeah.
to then separate it into, okay, let me create this fictional world and work on my thriller and my red herrings or my romance.
Yeah.
That's too hard.
Especially because like high emotions are exhausting already, and then writing a book
Yes.
is exhausting. So you're already empty, and then you're trying to do
Yes.
more things. Like, take a nap, it's okay, try tomorrow.
Yes. That's a great advice. Take a nap. We all need a
Yes.
nap. So I've just got a couple questions left
Yeah.
for you. They're fun, they're easy. What is something you like to do when you're not writing or helping other people write?
I'm a big baker. I bake
Mm.
when I'm stressed out, and so especially coming up on almost pub day, my debut year, I've been baking a lot. Uh, my kids always pick out these ridiculous Pinterest cakes for their birthdays, and every year, I
Of
swear they're
course.
trying to like punk me or something and make me mess up on a
Mm-hmm.
cake because they get more and more complicated every year. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
that's always a fun challenge, but they have yet to defeat me. So, mhm.
That's
I
good.
also,
Mom's winning.
yeah, I also spend a lot of time at the beach when I can. I'm only about an hour from the coast, and so I like to go there when all of the stories floating around in my brain all the time get to be
Mm,
just a lot, and I can just sit with my feet in the water and just no more stories, no more characters, just purge my brain, and then I go back and then I put it all back in. But at least for an hour or two, I get to just nothing.
the best. I don't I'm not I haven't been on a lot of warm beaches,
No.
but I will say the Oregon coast is the best, and I love that it's cold and stormy and windy. But we just went last weekend, and it was perfect. It was sunny, it was warm. Those are always nice days.
Yes.
But man, being at the beach is my favorite thing, and I love to bake too. I make these yummy cookies that are like my favorite thing to make lately. Is these they're huge, they're so huge, and you bang the pan down and it creates all these like ripples and folds. So the outside is crunchy, the inside is chewy. It's like the best cookie. It's my favorite.
Now I really want a cookie.
You're going to need to make cookies. It's so good. You seem like a girl of my own heart because the beach,
Yes.
the Oregon coast, there's nothing like it.
It's so nice.
I mean, I'm sure there is, but it's my favorite.
Not for us. That's all that is for us.
Yeah. Well, my last question is easy. It sounds really hard, but it's not. I would love to know what your favorite book is right now. Not your favorite book of all time, not the best book ever. Just something you've read recently, or 2 or 3 somethings you've read recently that you want to tell people about.
It's actually a very easy question because I am
good.
obsessed with A Fragile Enchantment by Allison Saft. I bullied her into giving me an early copy a couple months ago. And by bullied, I mean I asked her nicely and she sent it to me.
Very nicely. Yeah.
But I was I love that book. I'm so obsessed with it, and it's so good. And I've been thinking about it probably once a week since I read it. It's so romantic and it's so angsty, and I'm just obsessed. And now it also is coming out earlier than planned, and so I'm so excited. And I can't wait for it to be out in the world in January and for everyone else to see it too because it's so good.
It's so good. Everything she's written has been like
Yes.
just aching heart when you're done with it
Yes.
because it's so good. Yeah.
It's so good.
She's wonderful.
And this is I would say this is my favorite, which is a feat considering all the other ones. Like I love that book so much.
We're going to have to talk after A Dark Drowning Tide comes out and see what you think then.
Yes, definitely.
Well, Megan, thank you so much for chatting with me. I'm so excited for your debut to come out and to see what you've got next going on. It's it makes me happy for you that this is what's going on in your life right now, having taken a break, having quit writing, right?
Yeah.
You persevered, you came back in your own time, and I'm really happy for you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.